one of the objects on the Egyptian touch tour here at the Met, the face of which is showing now on the screen. It's a sphinx, a giant sphinx about 12 feet long of the female pharaoh Hatshepsut. And when you look at this sphinx, you can't see with the eye, and really even on close observation, unless you really look very carefully with your eyes, that she has very carefully carved ribs. Her rib cage is however, clearly distinguishable by touch. It's very clear to the hands. At the Met, we're continuing to learn and to develop ways to make works of art accessible to all visitors. By incorporating touch and other senses into our programming in well-considered ways, we hope, we're establishing a new paradigm for museum education. And now we'd like to share with you some of the work that we do incorporating the senses into our programs. So we know that touch is not enough on its own. We've heard about that already today, and we'll continue to look at that. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, well, there are two things that I wanted to bring up that are really important aspects of our planning, our thinking about programs that involve touch. One is the vital importance of guidance in the form of description, what we call verbal imaging here at the Met, and we'll talk more about that. And the second thing is the importance of encouraging active touch in a meaningful way, a way that has a clear purpose, a goal, not just touch for the sake of being able to touch something, really being active. And an example of that, really, again, is this Hatshepsut Sphinx. This piece has been heavily restored, and it was restored at the early part of the century when restoration practice involved making the restoration blend in so that you can hardly tell that there's been restoration, although big chunks of the piece are, in fact, missing. And to the naked eye, it's difficult to perceive, but it's very clear when you're touching that the restored areas are warmer to the touch than the granite, and they're also smoother, so the temperature and the texture are different, and those are characteristics of the object that you can't get from looking, and they're very important characteristics of the object. And just that experience of those different textures and temperatures bring up a couple of different issues about the object, for the history of the object. First of all, why was it broken? Why was this sculpture smashed into thousands of pieces? Which brings up the ancient history. And then it also brings up the issue of the way restoration and the way museums have restored and conserved objects in the more recent history. It brings up that discussion as well. So touch can really bring to the fore some things and some important aspects of the history of the objects here that that aren't so obvious from sight. This is an image of some visitors touching a sculpture of the Egyptian goddess Sekhmet, and the work of art, as I said, is being described to them. They're not just asked to sort of touch this without any information. The description, the aim of the description is to build up a mental image, or to help them use the sight that they have to understand the object and the way it was made and the materials that it's made from and its history. And when we're doing this, when we're planning these touch tours, we of course have to think of the different qualities of touch and vision in planning a tour. One very important aspect or consideration is time. It takes a lot longer because touch is sequential. It's not instantaneous. You have to touch each part of that sculpture and build up an image of it, or build up an idea of it. So it takes a lot longer. It's a lot more taxing to the memory. Distraction is a bigger issue, perhaps. Also, of course, touch is immediate and not remote like sight. So touching is only one person at a time can touch an object, or maybe a few people if it's a large object. So again, that is reflected in the time it takes to do a touch tour. So these are just some of the things that are that we consider. And finally, just another image of guided touching, of an educator working with a person who's blind to learn about specific aspects of a sculpture on the tour.